This season of Beyond the Brand is brought to you by Leader. For more information, visit leader.co. What happens when you win on the wrong scoreboard? Well, by mid-2024, Eric Schulte had it all. VP role, 8-figure deals, national stages. Then a motorcycle crash shattered his world. Lying in a hospital bed with a broken back, he realized he'd tracked financial success with precision while flying blind on his health and purpose. 2 years later, he's defying the odds, did run 2 ultra marathons. Now he helps executives close the gap between a life that looks great on paper and one that actually feels worth living. Please welcome Vice President at Meet Perry, Eric Schulte. And Eric, kind of walk us through what happened in 2024. You were really crushing it, but there was something going on underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. From an external metric standpoint, it was the best year of my life. And it wasn't goals that I'd been shooting for days or weeks at a time. It was things that I'd been working on for over a decade to line up the degree, to get the experience, to be able to gain the position, to go from deals that were a few $1,000s up to multi-million-dollar deals, to be able to actually take the stage at a national conference and be a subject matter expert in AI. It was everything that I thought would have that aha, I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, that checkbox. And unfortunately, it only lasted a day, maybe 2. And then it was on to the next thing. The goals just got bigger. And what I realized was, although having a high degree of success in the things I was focused on, there was a whole area of my life that, frankly, I was failing on. And so, unfortunately, August is when kind of the wheels came off. And I had to face that in a pretty harsh sense.
Yeah, you had a really bad motorcycle crash. You were told you had a broken back. You may not ever walk again. At what point did that change, that light bulb go off in you and go, I can do something about this?
Yeah, there were 2 distinct times. The first one I'll bring you to is, frankly, the first memory I have after the accident. And I was going through extensive surgeries. I had 6 within a 2-day period. And in between those, my back surgeon had come to me and put 2 options on the table. I had broken L1, 2, and 3 in my low back. And so there was the option of going with a fusion, which was the safer option, but I'd lose most of my mobility. Or I could take the riskier option, which was what I ended up going through, which was screws. But there was a higher probability that they nick my spine. So things like being paralyzed, not being able to walk again were on the table. And so it was having that first decision point, which is I did not and was not willing to allow myself to take an option that removed living the life that I wanted to live. There's a lot of things I want to do in the world, and a lot of them require mobility. And so that was the first risk that I had to take. The second one, I was in the hospital for a month, and it was around week 3 that I got to the point, after all of the drugs they had put me on and the rest, that I really had some mental clarity. That was combined with being, frankly, stationary. I had both my arms broken, so I had both of them in casts. My back was broken. I had broken 7 of my ribs. And so I was extremely stationary. Couldn't feed myself, couldn't get up to go to the restroom, any of it. So there's a lot of time to think. And so I spent that time going back through my life of what were the moments, what were the times that I was plugged in, that I was engaged. And if I could repeat that chapter for an eternity, I would be absolutely enthralled. And what were the times on the reverse? And so that's really where I had to, again, pick. I had been following the standard guidance that I had gotten up to that point. Focus on your career, focus on your finances, make sure those ducks are in a row, and everything else will work out, right? The white picket fence line that we get sold. And it hadn't worked out. And so that's where I needed to pick, frankly, the path less trodden and figure out how I could find an alternative approach to still have that level of success, but not end up in a spot where I'm quite literally and figuratively broken.
You talk a lot about the incomplete scorecard. Explain what it is and why you think it traps people.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where, as much as I would like to say that I am a unique flower, I am not. A lot of people end up running into this, right? It's you focus on the couple things in your life that are your North Star. For me, it was my, frankly, status and career. So I had dialed those in. All of my energy went to those, and the rest fell by the wayside. At times they were good, at times they were pretty horrible. And leading up to that accident, the other three core areas that I think that you need to track, right? There absolutely is the career, there is the financial. But the other three, you're looking at where's your physical health, where's your mental health, and where's your community or spiritual health. And for me on the physical side, I had put on 60 pounds in the year leading up to that accident. And then on the mental health side, I wasn't in a good place. I thought my aha and my resolution was going to be hitting those goals. And then as soon as I hit those things I've been striving for years, it didn't check the box. And then on the community side, I'd put so much time and energy into my career and what I was doing there that I neglected the people around me and building that support mechanism. And as much as even on the engineering side, I was good on 2 out of 5. That's 40%. You're failing on pretty much anyone's metric.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think you were burned out?
That's a good question. And frankly, along those lines, I tried. So I thought that I was burned out. And so that kind of leads into the same traditional advice around just pump the brakes, take a pause. And I did multiple, right? So I actually had a period that I ran off to Portugal and I spent a couple weeks up in Porto. It was lovely, surfing, amazing jazz music there. It did recharge the energy, but I didn't solve the core problem. Because when it came down to it, the core problem was me. And all I was doing was taking me and taking it from a corporate and boardroom setting and put myself onto a beautiful beach with great music. And even going through and doing that, I didn't resolve that core issue, which is I had internal things that were going on that I needed to go through and resolve. So yes, it filled up the energy battery, say the physical battery, taking that break, de-stress, et cetera. But I don't think that traditional advice really works. Not
so how do you operate now?
That's a great question. The way that I operate now, the biggest thing is I would describe it as just being more intentional. So I had taken the time to look through where in my life I had work to do. And as I mentioned previously, it's the physical side, the mental, and the community. So I set aside specific goals to be able to work to this. That's where it tied in on the ultra marathons and a number of other things that I've been working on. And so it's making sure that every week, 2 weeks, month, that I'm actually taking the time to stop and see where am I at in those buckets. Because as much as Rome wasn't built in a day, it also didn't fall apart in a day. And any of the times that I was in a bad spot in my life, what I noticed is I had about a 3-month window before things went from great to okay to problematic. So that's how I'm approaching it now. It's making sure that all of those boxes are either in progress to improve or in a healthy spot.
So what advice would you give to someone who is checking all those boxes, hitting all those goals, but they still feel like something's off in their life?
That's a great question. The first thing that I would say is good job. Most people that are achieving at a high level in any avenue don't typically get enough credit. So first, take a second and give yourself the kudos that you deserve. The second part is it's not something that you need to panic about. Similar to what I mentioned on the time frame thing, it's not something that goes wrong in a day, and it's also not something that's going to be solved in a day. And so the biggest recommendation I have, actually, let me pause. Do not crash a Harley Davidson at 150 miles an hour. 10 out of 10 don't recommend. I think it can be solved in other ways. Where I think that people could go is taking a pause. It's the counterintuitive part. And the checkbox is really, how are you doing? And I actually love this example. It was one of the harder questions earlier on. And it sounds simple on the surface. It's just, how are you? And typically we all have that water cooler answer. It's, I'm good, I'm busy, some surface level question or answer. If someone had asked you a second time, a follow-up, and said, how are you really? That for me is where I crumbled, because it wasn't that far below the surface that I was having challenges. And so it's having that time with yourself where you can sit down and see where are you at across those 5 categories? And I would expect that there's going to be some pretty glaring ones that jump out that need a little bit of love. And then it's just making an action plan around what can you do? Because there are tactical things that you can then implement, but it's not the same answer for everyone.
Well, Eric, congratulations on where you are today. And don't recommend that Harley at 150. That's not a good idea. But glad to see you're doing so well. Eric Schulte, thank you so much, Vice President of Meet Perry.